pensive.
That's original music. No big deal. No big deal. Yeah, who wants to pay for rights to
Not.
Good God.
Get in the lab. Make it yourself.
Do something with you. Well, cheers and welcome to From Behind the Barcast, the podcast for bartending, service industry, drinking in general. I'm Paxton Eugene. We got Sunset Kelly on the ones and twos. And today, from the Ghost Pirates, our very special guest, Benji. Thank you so much for coming in.
Paxton.
So the Zamboni Jabroni,
That's what they call me.
your official title, I don't think denotes everything that you do. So the official title is
It's hype man. When I've got the call sheet that they send out, it'll say like, "Oh, this person's floor manager, this person's PA announcer." It literally says "hype man" next to my name.
it's on the business card, baby.
Absolutely.
Let's see Paul Allen's card. What does it look like? So yeah, that doesn't denote everything that you do there.
No.
And so, well, first of all, getting in what got you to the Ghost Pirates?
Well, so I used to live in Ohio and in Michigan, and when I lived in Michigan, I'm a school teacher, and so my summers are off, and I was like, you know what? I like being in front of people. I like being involved in sports, but also kind of like show business kind of vibes. And I got in with a baseball team in Lansing, Michigan called the Lansing Lugnuts. I was their on-field MC.
Minor league teams are far and above better sounding names than the Macon Bacons.
Absolutely.
Come on, man. Yeah.
There's the Trash Pandas somewhere. Like It's like no holds barred with team names in minor league baseball.
Yeah.
So I worked for a team called the Lansing Lugnuts, and I was their on-field MC. So basically, between innings, every half inning, I'd be down on the field being like, all right, now we're going to do a dizzy bat game. Or we're going to do minute to minute, basically running the contest.
Yeah, because minor league teams do much more between inning shenanigans than major league teams do.
Yeah, because, they don't have the brand recognition to pull people in.
Yeah.
So they have to create more of a fan experience, which, as aside, the Ghost Pirates do a wonderful job of that because, they're not the major league, the NHL affiliate. They're an affiliate of an NHL team. So they've got to kind of try to hustle and get people in the door.
So they are, because like the Savannah Bananas, they're in like a very specialized league sort of thing.
Absolutely.
But the Ghost Pirates, they are a farm, I don't know how you'd say it, farm league.
Yeah, they're an affiliate. Is what
Okay,
they would
gotcha.
call it.
Okay.
So theoretically, a player who is super successful with the Ghost Pirates would move on to the Henderson Silver Knights is the next level, and then the Vegas Golden Knights. At least that's the previous years when we've been affiliated with the Vegas Golden Knights, and that's the pipeline we're in.
Right.
Yep.
So on your resume already, you had some,
Yeah.
PA announcement, whatever.
So when I moved down here, I'm a teacher, and I was looking for, okay, well, what can I do? I'm moving down here in the summer. Are there any minor league teams down here? And I looked, and Savannah Bananas. That's
You
a little bit of a
moved to
pipe dream.
teach first. That
Correct.
was the original. That was the impetus.
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
And I looked up and I was like, oh, there's a sports team down here. There's a hockey team, the Savannah Ghost Pirates, and I saw that they were a fledgling team, and I also saw that they were looking for a PA announcer. And so I walked into the front office completely unannounced, kind of bombarded the guy who's in charge of marketing and the fan experience there, and was like, hey, I have experience. Like, I would love to work for you guys. Can I get a business card? Is there an application process? Whatever. Got his business card, harassed him for a couple weeks, calling him. Got an interview for PA announcing, and I think that they looked at my resume and said, like, hey, you've done a lot more than PA announcing in your past. Like, we see that you've got some experience with this. Maybe we can try to involve you in different ways. And before the season even started, I was helping out with events. They, to get hype for the year, or just to do to appease sponsors and stuff like that.
Pep rally.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We'll show up at a used car lot, or we'll show up at sponsors events, and they had me doing mascots a couple times. They had me just helping to run things, meeting with the fans, whatnot.
So they're not televised, I don't think, right?
So they are. There's an on. Sorry, they're not televised, but they're streamed.
They stream,
online.
yeah. So do they have brand deal sponsorships? Obviously, you probably put up signs around the the rink and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But are there, so appeasing the sponsors, there's also sponsors that like advertise through the streams?
You know what? Candidly, because
Yeah.
I'm at all the games, I've never watched. I know that Flow Sports is what they go through.
You're
the
right
stream.
there. You're right there, baby.
I would imagine that the sponsors that are in-game sponsors are also
Sure,
sponsors
yeah.
during media timeouts or anything
Yeah.
like that. But
But
yeah.
you're fulfilling contracts, like doing the pep rallies before the year starts. Drive up some excitement for.
Like, for example, ViStar is a major sponsor, and I remember that I was the mascot for an opening of a branch of ViStar on Skidaway Island, and I think that we try to make those sponsors really happy.
Oh yeah, for sure, yeah. I mean, I try and make sponsors as happy as I can, just like FiremakerBeer.com.
Nice segue.
Visit FiremakerBeer.com for more details. I'm enjoying what I always do, the Blueberry Lemonade 9.2. Woo! Benji's got
I've
the
got
hazed and blazed.
Yeah, I love a good hazy IPA, and this one absolutely does not
So
disappoint.
they run the gamut of styles of beer. But I forgot, and he doesn't bring me these anymore because I don't like them. But there's the Hail Southern, which is like so Georgia Southern. Are you familiar with Georgia
Yeah,
Southern?
absolutely.
So essentially, Georgia Southern is like if your parents aren't dug into the UGA world, because like you can get into UGA if you have good athletics or good academics. Or you could be mouth-breathing, soft brain, but if your dad went there, you can get in. I've known people who didn't get in because they didn't have a family connection, but they were smart enough. So Southern's like the fallout of that,
Sure.
And the douche to cool person radio at Georgia Southern, which a lot of my friends went there, admittedly.
I got a few.
It's like, so the old Hail Southern thing. But every other beer is amazing from FiremakerBeer.com. Visit them for more details. Thanks to Michael O'Connor, my plug, for coming by today. And
who I would assume probably is connected to Georgia Southern.
Yeah,
If it's got a
yeah.
beer named after it.
Well, they also Kelly and I went to the Masters on a Thursday, and the Calamity Jane by Firemaker Beer is actually partnered up with the PGA. So
Oh, heck yeah, man.
So you go into the office, applying for the PA announcement job, and they're like, okay, since you have these other talents, right away was it? There's a thing when you get hired. It's like, oh, can we get him to do more
Yeah.
than the job title, and then sort of rest on like, oh no, we got a guy that takes care of it.
I think that they and this is, if this sounds like I'm complaining, it really isn't. I love everything about working for the Ghost Pirates, but I think that there was a deliberate effort to keep my job as nebulous as possible. Because I applied for PA announcer, but I also interviewed to be like, hey, do you have any full-time stuff? Like, do you have any, or like, at least major
Clerical stuff, like even just being in an office.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and at the time, unfortunately, they didn't. But I was able to progress through the PA announcer, which was more of an audition process than an interview process.
I would say, yeah, because that it's sort of important to like sound good,
Exactly.
project, or have a diction that everyone understands, and not be afraid.
And you've played hockey, so you obviously understand the game.
Sure. Yeah, they had me on the ice for my audition. They're like,
See that
can you
slap
throw a
shot?"
hard check? Yeah. But the reality is, so that was its own path. But I think that once I was in the fold for that, the fact that they had interviewed me, that they knew where my head was at, that they knew that I was capable of interacting with people and,
And
stuff
willing.
like that, and willing, that made them feel comfortable, and that they thought it would be a reasonable request to have me try other things within.
Well,
the
and if you're
organization.
at a place long enough, like this guy might go to another job, and all of a sudden there's a position to be filled that's not necessarily like full time. You know,
absolutely.
like the t-shirt gun guy or something, whatever. As an example. So they're like, nah, Benji's got that shit, man. He already
100%. That's exactly right. And I hate to say, when things would fall through the cracks with somebody else that's in the organization, that's like their job, I would end up being. I got called on March 16th. I hope that this isn't too much of a peek behind the curtain. I don't think anyone's getting mad about it, but I got called on March 16th, like, yo, our Davy for the St. Patrick's Day parade float backed out. Will you stop in and do our Davy? I was going to be on the float anyway, and I was like,
now I got to put on a hot.
it's going to be like 87
I got to
degrees.
put on this hot. Yeah.
Oh my God. I did it. And I frankly, I had a blast. If I would have just walked as myself, wearing a jersey or whatever, it would have been fun. I would have waved at people, whatever. But being able to be like, I made people like personally was able to make people extra excited by being Davey, going out slapping five, mixing up with
fulfilling.
people. Exactly. It's it's like driving 3 ladies home in a breeze with when you know that they're not going to pay you. Sometimes you do it because you know that it's going to make people happy.
You do it for the love, baby.
You do it for the love.
I went to Benedictine Military School here for like 4 months. That was my entire tenure there.
One of the 4
but I was
monthers.
there long enough to. I was in the marching band.
Absolutely.
And it's only drums and then a trumpet, which it was 2 paradiddles the entire time, and then we would stop every so often, and the trumpet. He wasn't a trumpet player, really. He played taps. And so we're in full dress, and March in Savannah can be 85 or 65. We're in full dress, and I'm a big guy. I've been the same size since I was 15 years old. So they gave me the big bass drum, and I put it on. I was like, not today, BC. So I took the other end of the stick, and I busted the head off of it.
Oh, I can't play anymore.
How am I supposed to play this? So they gave me a snare drum. I was like, let's go. Ra-pa-pa, ra-pa-pa. So auditioning and applying for the PA position, do you, outside of what you had already done with the minor league baseball team, had you come from like a lineage of people being on microphone?
Yeah, so actually my dad was a radio talk show host in Mansfield, Ohio, Central Ohio, for 35 years. He's now retired, but he did that his entire career, my entire lifetime. He was on the air. So he would do like a 2-hour show every morning. They moved him to nighttime, whatever, it doesn't matter. But I was
it like morning zoo thing, or was it?
No, so he was like AM radio. It would have been more like local events. They weren't cutting away to music. It was his show. He would have guests.
Oh, it's AM.
on. Yeah, AM station.
That's
No commercials,
awesome.
no mercy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, they had commercials, but they weren't but it wasn't like little fillers between.
There's no
half-hour blocks.
bumpers.
Exactly. So he was doing that, and when you have a dad that works in radio, they don't turn it off all the time. He's in the car and he's like, "Hey son, can you pass the Cheetos?" or whatever. He would be in radio voice a lot.
That's what I wanted to ask you. Like, being your dad is like, he was the same at the dinner table or at the drive-through.
He would turn it off sometimes, but anytime that he had to say anything with the most remote amount of authority, it would always go into radio voice. And I was able to kind of pick up on how to do
Benjamin,
his radio voice.
if you don't finish that homework currently, we are going to cut to commercial.
Yes, exactly.
And you don't want to do that.
He'd answer the phone, with that same bravado, and I would be able to imitate it. And so like in middle school when they would do like popcorn reading and you'd be reading around the room, I would always read whatever passage in the radio voice, just try to crack people up. So I picked that up at a young age. But I would be, if they needed a little kid for a voice of a commercial, that they wrote that needs a little kid, I would be the little kid. Or I would go in on Christmas Eve. He would always do a special Christmas Eve version of his program, and I would go sit in the studio with him for that. So I enjoy being on a microphone. I enjoy talking to people. I don't really get stage fright with that kind of thing.
Sure, yeah.
And so being able to be involved with, if you throw a mic in my hand and say, you need to read this thing that you've never read before in front of a couple thousand people, like that doesn't particularly
You're not pissing your
frighten
pants
me.
about it, yeah.
No, yeah.
And you said you were obviously 35 years in the game. You probably had a lot of FaceTime in the studio and
Yeah, absolutely.
anyways, and did that give you like a lust for learning, like the not just the performance side of it, but the production side of it as well? Like, was it more interesting to be like, oh, does this cable goes into here and then it turns into ones and zeros in the air?
Well, candidly, I was more interested. So yes, it's not simply the recording, but the production side that I enjoyed was more what's going in, editing the sound itself, chopping, making sure the levels are good on that. At a super young age, I was never particularly interested in like which wires go which, or what's a really good amp, or what technologies are great for
But
this.
maybe what goes into not necessarily the script, because I doubt he was running off a script, but like the show preparation, maybe
Absolutely
pre-production.
Yes, but then because my dad worked in a radio station, there were DJs, in his same building, and a lot of times my dad would be the host for a local event that a DJ in his same radio station would be playing the music, and that guy would want to take a beer break or smoke break or whatever. And because I listened to like the oldies all the time because my dad was the program director for the oldies station. He would be like, Benji, can you sit and run the tunes for me for the next half hour or whatever? And so I learned how to run his DJ software. And then by the time I was 16 or 17 years old, he would send, if he had like a wedding on a Saturday that he was getting $100 an hour or whatever.
Yep.
And meanwhile, there's a car show the same day that he would have to turn down. He'd be like, Benji, you want to go DJ that car show? As a 16-year-old kid, if I was making $300 on a Saturday to go DJ a car show, like that was the dream, man.
And if you can imitate him really well, just stand behind the curtain and be like,
I almost want to cry. This is like how I wanted to grow up. I mean, it's gorgeous.
So I grew up enamored with rock radio DJs, or just radio DJs in general. The guy from I forget his name now, but from Coast to Coast that comes on really late at night on AM radio, talking about like holes leading to hell and whatever. So
I know exactly what you're talking about.
I was enamored with the whole process of like the radio.
Art Bell.
Yeah, that's
Bell,
it.
let's
Got
go.
it. Boom. No Google here. So I was always enamored with the, with radio DJs in general. So when I was like 12 years old, I would call into this radio station because they would have call-in request lines, and they would record the requests that they would end up playing. So it'd be like, hey, this is Daisy on the South Side, and I want to hear the Black Crows get hot to handle, whatever. So I would call in as a 12-year-old as a character. I'd be like,
Let's go.
Hey there, son. Now listen, y'all been playing all this modern music all this time. Do you have a little Edward Van Halen for me? Whatever. So I'll call in the first like 5 times. They used those recordings. Mm-hmm. So then finally the guy's like, I know you're not that old. What are you doing here? You keep calling. I was like, dude, I'm just so interested in like, getting on the air and hearing myself and, interested in the craft, He's like, listen, dude, it's a super fun job. I get a lot of perks, but I don't make any money. Mm-hmm. And I'm like 12 years old, and he was being fully honest with me. He was like, concert tickets, music, I get to go to events for free, a little bit of notoriety. The money isn't there, but it's really nice just to come in here and play some music and read an ad or two every now and then.
Yeah. That was absolutely the experience in my household as well. Exactly what you described. Tons of little perks. If you enjoy the fact that if you go downtown, people are going to come say hi. People are going to appreciate you. It's not just being recognized. It's also people being like, hey, thanks for making my morning awesome, because you're on the radio. So if you can attribute value to that, then it does mitigate the fact that, radio hosts don't make a ton of money. There's a lot of industries where you think that like, oh, because I know of them, it must be super lucrative. And really, that's not the case.
Not really the case. And I'm uncomfortable with adulation or any sort of personal interaction where like, oh man, Paxton, hey, podcast. But when people say, man, every Tuesday morning, it's my ride to work.
100%.
That hits where I'm like, oh man, okay, good. Not just, because like I said, I'm socially awkward in public, even though my 3 industries that I work in are like.
So you're a school teacher to a younger age, and then you take this on in the meantime. I mean, you must just be. If you're not sleeping, you're going, right?
It's crazy. During Ghost Pirate season, on Tuesdays, I have 3 jobs. So I teach in the morning. I do lessons at a music store in town that might not be a sponsor. No, I do lessons at Portman's.
I was about to say, I'm a Portman's guy. They put the Guitar Center literally right next to it.
I think that they thought. Guitar Center thought that they were going to squeeze Portman's out.
Yeah, no.
And Portman's just kind of stiff-armed him. We're like, nah, we're going to
I went in there the other day. I had a gig to get some sticks, and I was like, definitely going to Portman's. And I was looking for my guy Butch, and he wasn't in there. I was like, oh, my drum guy is in here.
Where's my drum tech?
My God. Did Guitar Center push him out?
But then I also, I was just going to say, then I also host trivia and bingo on Tuesday and Thursday. So I host trivia on Tuesday at the Draft Room at Berwick over near Georgetown. And on Thursdays, I host at Rachel's in Georgetown. I host bingo out there.
Oh, man. So you teach at South Effingham?
That is correct, yeah.
Then you go to effing Georgetown for another gig?
But I live in Savannah, so I would be coming back to
Good grief. All over Savannah.
Yeah. You teach at South Effingham. Music teacher.
Yeah.
And grade what? 1 through 5?
Kindergarten through 5th. Yep.
noble endeavor.
Now,
like I said earlier.
I don't care if you have a room full of prodigies, okay? You're never going to have a room full of prodigies musically, right?
Yeah.
But so handling the managing the expectations. All right, so any band I've ever been in, you might have 3 or 4 guys, maybe 5.
Yeah.
Where you're managing their expectations or what they're capable of or all that. So let's scale that up by 20, and you've got young.
Yeah, let's make them 6 years old too. Yeah.
Young kids who aren't necessarily, music is it's an every person class and at those grades, right? It's not
Absolutely.
an elective,
Yep.
right?
It's not elective.
And so you're managing 25 little expectations over and over and over, period to period or whatever.
Yeah.
Has that affected your approach to your love of not just mentorship or teaching, but just music?
I would say that my love for music has never waned because of any frustrations that I have with teaching. Sometimes, I've taught K through 12. My certification is K through 12 music. So I've taught high school choir, I've taught middle schoolers, I've taught actually every grade level in my career. And when you teach high school, you don't go to bed or you don't go home as tired, but also you're not giving out 300 high fives a day, and you're not giving out hugs and stuff like that. So kind of like what we talked about, where you have to balance the monetary value of things, or
Versus
I go home,
the personal fulfillment.
Exactly, the
value of
personal
things.
fulfillment. And even though the pay is the same, I go home a lot more exhausted
Yeah.
and sometimes a lot more frustrated.
Yeah.
But then the next day, I've got kids that are I collect rubber ducks in my classroom. Kids bring me rubber ducks every single day. I will walk in, and kids will have rubber. Hey, I found this rubber duck in a claw machine.
And a high schooler ain't going to walk in and be like,
don't care.
Mr. Benji, what's happening, dude? But those kids, they'll walk in.
100%.
And half the time, music class is a respite for them.
Yeah, exactly.
Say they have math right before that or something, or whatever. Language arts. I don't know if that's still a thing. Right before that. Then they come in, and even if they don't care about music necessarily, it's kind of like you get to beat on shit.
And Paxton, I describe it to people all the time that my job, the way I see my job, is that it is 50% teaching kids music so that they know what a quarter note is, so that they know what these genres and instruments are. And the other 50% is getting them out of bed on a day that they know that they have music that day. And if I can be enough of a positive force, if they can just enjoy coming into my classroom, enjoy the process of going to music class, even if they're not a great singer or musician, or even if they don't really care about music, if they know that I'm going to talk about Pokemon with them or something like that, and it gets them out of bed so that they can go learn about English that day.
Being excited about something.
And be excited about school, yeah.
I mean, I think literally every facet of all the careers that you do is sort of boosting the excitement level for whatever thing that you're doing,
Yeah,
which has got to be super fulfilling.
Well, I ascribe my own personal joy to bringing joy to others, and I know that sounds like a real lame, pat on the back thing to say, but I do.
No.
But I really do. I'm a people pleaser, but I also just try to make people happy,
Yeah.
And this is I think of myself as a social butterfly, and when you think of a social butterfly, people tend to think
gay.
Here's a little aside. When you think about social butterfly, you think of there's a person who's just kind of floating around the room. But what a butterfly actually does in reality is that they're pollinating the flowers around them so that everybody else can have a more beautiful situation.
We got the philosophy major.
There it
over
is.
here.
And
Benji Nietzsche.
But you
love
know
it,
what?
yeah.
If I'm coming to Huckapoos and I'm going to be a social butterfly, I want my presence there to make this group also have a better time, and this group also have a better time. And you guys, as being part of that same industry, whether it's breeze driving or being a bartender, I'm sure you have that same vibe that you're like, okay, it's not just because I enjoy talking to other people. I do.
Yeah.
But I can brighten other people's day and let them have a better time with their own people.
Well, I have an unspoken social agreement about whether I'm going to provide a good time for you or not. Because I match energy, or actually I oppose energy. So if someone comes in super hot,
chill.
Well, I don't say it. I go, hey, what can I get you? Like the little psychological things you
Yeah,
can do.
absolutely.
If a big burly dude comes in, looking all like beefcake, I'm like, hey, pumpkin. Not just for disarmament, but just to give them a polarity of how vast attitudes
You are
can
the
be.
yin to their yang.
Right, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I do have a social agreement, an unspoken one, where it's like, if you want to have a good time and we're on the same page, I'm gonna make you look like a fucking rock star.
100%. Yeah.
If you're my buddy and you're with a girl that's new, you know,
You're getting it tonight.
I'll be like, Benji's the man. Let me tell you, man. I'll lie about it. I'll be like, man, I broke down on the south side. I called Benji. He was there in 10 minutes, fixed my tire, slapped me, high five, he bought me dinner, whatever. But then there's other people that are like, the expectation is to have a good time, no matter what the expense is for the person providing it for him, But in your industry, I imagine people expect you to be on all the time, even outside of work situations.
Yeah.
Do you feel that pressure at all to be entertaining?
I would say I feel the pressure more when I'm on the clock, candidly. I can go home and decompress when I've got the time to do
you
so.
clocked in to do that, though.
That's true. And when in the elementary school world, I'm sure that there's not a ton of overlap between your audience and people who work in elementary schools, but perhaps
there is. There's a lot, actually.
Oh well, then
you would
that's
be
fantastic.
surprised. Yeah.
What's up, people who work in elementary schools? But in the elementary school world, the classroom teachers are kind of like let's be honest, they're all moms. They're like the moms of the students, and I'm like the fun uncle. And if you're the fun uncle, when you see your nieces and nephews on Christmas, they go apeshit because it's their day when they see their uncle, and they might not see your uncle for another month. And it's my whole career is a patchwork of fun uncle moments, right? Because these kids are going to come in, see me for 45 minutes. That's their 45 minutes to see me for the week.
Okay.
Then they leave, and then 25 new kids are going to come in, get their 45 minutes with me for the week, leave, and so on and so on. And that is what my entire year is made of, which can be draining, but it definitely it tells me I can't be crotchety. I can't come in cranky and ruin this kid's one music class that they have for that week because I have a bad attitude. But so I do kind of have to check my attitude at the door.
Day.
Exactly. And then it's 2 weeks between having a good music class if I have one bad session.
And that's a lot of names to remember too.
So when you come in, there's state check boxes that you have to check when you start, especially starting teaching in Georgia for the first time. They basically treat me like a new teacher, and you have to set a couple goals. And one of my goals was learn all the students' names by the end of the year, knowing that that's a little bit of a pipe dream. But I think I got up to about 80% of the students. It's tough, and sometimes you have to just look at them and be like,
Ginger Gary,
give me your name, please.
Talk about remembering names, brother. I say it all the time, but it's like people come in, they're like, hey, do you know Gary? I'm like, what does he look like? What does he drink? Oh, Bud Light Jameson. Oh, Gary.
Gary. Yeah. Bud Light Jameson.
Where does Gary live? Yep.
Yeah. I know Gary. Right.
What's his credit card look like? I've closed his tab out.
Blue South State. And especially being a teacher for that young of an age, where do you draw the line between? Because all right, so obviously that you are or your class is their respite, but you also have to maintain some sort of curriculum, I would imagine, from beginning of the year to the end of the year. Mm-hmm. So finding the balance between like, hey, we're here to have fun, but also there's, like you said, there's boxes you have to check.
And I remind them that in a gentle way. You don't want to give them too much behind the curtain of like, I have requirements. But, kids, if you talk to them, you don't talk to them like adults because you're not as vulgar. You still have filters that you go through. But if you talk to them like people instead of like little
your
teeny
kid
tiny
announcer
kids,
voice.
Exactly. Listen, children. But if you can communicate, like, hey guys, like, I know you like being here, but we got to learn about reading rhythms, and some days it's hard. Just like I say that I have 800 students, and they are 800 little variables. And I make my lesson plans every week, and the best laid plans of mice and men.
Mice and men.
Exactly. You have 800 variables, 800 students with different personalities, and that's what makes them awesome. But at the same time, it can totally derail a lesson. when they get in contact, when different combinations of kids interact with each other. And I'm sure it's not unlike being a bartender or being a breeze driver when you're dealing with intoxicated individuals who are basically like children.
There's a thing for the poisoned apple that comes in, so you could have something really great going on, and I'm not calling any kids poisoned apples, but a kid with a different attitude can start to poison it, like
100%.
just in a day, not overall.
Yep.
But there could be a day where everything's going great. One kid decides he's not having a good time, and then he's gonna make sure that a few other people feel that way. At the bar, everyone's having a lovely time. Someone comes up with a gruff voice. "What are you doing here, knucklehead?" Yeah. And then all of a sudden, here, the dominoes fall.
Absolutely.
So then, your approach to straightening out or fixing a very drunk person or a child, you have to balance that line between because when I deal with children in terms of just interacting in my general life, I try and find the balance of like talk to them like an adult in the sense of like, obviously I'm not going to cuss or use giant words that they wouldn't understand, but I also have enough respect for a kid to be like, I'm going to speak to you frankly and clearly.
Exactly.
I'm not going to be diminutive and be like, "What are we doing down here, little guy? Are we okay right now?" Because you start doing that to a kid, it's going to last the rest of their lives. They're used to being spoken down to, whatever.
100%. Well, and frankly, I think that the reason why my students like me as much as they do, I don't think it's bragging to say, like, if I walk through the lunchroom when kids are at lunch, it becomes an issue. A lot of times whoever's running lunch will have to be like, "Will you please leave?" You're riling up the kids too much. And it's like, dude, not sorry. I'm sorry that the kids like me. But Paxton's exactly what you said. I don't go, when I walk in the building, I don't go, "Oh, how are you doing
How are my little
today?"
musicians today?
I'm like, "Dude, what's up? How's it going?"
Yeah.
Give them a high five and, dap them up, whatever. Like, just like I would if I saw a friend. Now, obviously, I can't always treat them like a friend. They have to know that I'm an authority figure and that there is that barrier, so that there is that extra respect. But
we were talking about it last week, and I know you were listening, where the delineation between what you're asked to be called. Are you Mr. Benji? Or
so a lot of the teachers do go by Mr. or Miss, their first name. I go by my last name. I go by Mr. Cates because that's what I think it's more common in Georgia to go by first name for teachers.
Is it really?
I've taught in Ohio and Michigan. I mentioned already that I'm from Ohio, and it's pretty much exclusively last name up in the Midwest. So.
Well, growing up as a kid, like the only teachers I remember, I think it was all their last names, unless someone's first name was Williams.
Yeah, it was always last name.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, now I think like with the softening of look, there's no right or wrong approach necessarily to how you teach your class because you can be effective. I had a math teacher that everyone else hated, but I loved because she was so structured.
Yeah.
And there was no wiggle. So she gave no wiggle, so no other kids took advantage of any of the wiggle.
And if you're the kind of person who operates under a strict framework, that you're like, I need to know the rules so I can operate under these rules, and that's when I'm going to be the most successful, which it seems like that's you.
But I'm a polarity of the two. I either want it fully flopping keister in the wind loose, or I want a tight ship. You know what I mean? It's a weird thing. I can operate great under both. Under a deadline, I work a lot better when it comes to functionally doing things. Mm-hmm. Learning, same thing. Let's learn. Are you so music class and when I was in elementary school, it was mostly percussive stuff. Mm-hmm. Xylophones, no horns until middle school. What instruments are in your classroom?
So that's a great question. We don't do any wind or we kind of do wind. So the way that I structure it is you're on to me. You're smelling what I'm stepping in, Paxton. In second grade, we're doing bucket drumming.
Yeah.
In third and fourth grade, because so as a music person, I think you'll follow this progression.
Yeah.
in kindergarten and first grade, it's kind of like get you up with the program. We do some boom whackers, some like idiot-proof stuff, maracas, hand percussion kind of stuff. Second grade?
Cabasa.
Yeah, exactly right. Some claves. You know.
No, little clave. Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, that Latin beat. But in second grade, we start doing bucket drumming so they can start learning how to read rhythms, read that one line, know what an eighth note sounds like, know what a quarter note sounds like, stuff like that.
I was about to say, because I still can't sight read ever, but rhythmically, I can read drum pattern,
Yeah, absolutely. You can do the takadimi, whatever. Yeah. Then in third and fourth grade, they do recorders. And frankly, the program is the exact same for third and fourth. I just expect that the fourth graders will catch up and out progress the third graders. Sure. Those classes are back to back in my schedule. So there is an hour and a half period during that unit, which was about a month and a half long, there's hour and a half of my day that is recorders. And every once in a while, I have to remind the kids. If you're
not familiar with the recorder, it's if you have kids, I guess, it's the little wind instrument that
plays hot cross buns.
And, buddy, you want to Anyway, so recorder isn't a piece of equipment that you record something with. It is a miniature flute.
A little song flute.
Device.
But yes, continue.
You know what? The biggest compliment that I would get is when parents would complain to me that their kids were playing their recorders too much at home. I was like, oh, that's another one. Oh, I'm so sorry for you that I have inspired your children to want to practice at home. But I had to remind my kids all the time, hey, I know that this is your 45 minutes of music for the week, but I'm listening to recorders for an hour and a half a day, so please don't make intentionally terrible sounds. Because, kids are curious. There's all kinds of extended technique that you can figure out for a recorder to make the most mortifyingly awful sounds.
Pull your finger off that hole just a tiny bit.
Oh, and they think it's the greatest thing. And it's like every class has discovered this. Please stop.
My stepdad would call it the tugboat when I would try and play my saxophone. And I was just terrible at it. So I would try and practice, and then I'd say, fuck it, and I'd walk outside. I'd hold down every lever and go, and I quit. That's it. So I can't imagine. One of the most visual memories I have from school music class in grade school was we were playing malleted instruments, like little drums or whatever. And it's just for some reason, like none of my music teachers, I don't remember them necessarily because like I said, music was, it wasn't an elective. It was just like something you did.
Yeah.
And I remember sort of retaining like, what a quarter note looks like, what a dotted eighth looks like, the bird's eye, all that shit. But the thing I took the most from it was any mallet instruments, do not rub those fucking mallets on your face. Because the oils get onto it or whatever.
Here's the thing.
And I have mallets now, and I'm like, guess what's never touching my face?
I'm glad. Hey, I'm glad that you still adhere to those basic rules. I thought you were going to be like, suck it.
Suck it, Mr. Whoever your name was.
You can't tell me I live.
I'm a real drummer now. Thank you. We'll have a little bit more for you in the second half. Thank you. Welcome back to the podcast for sporting and music excellence. I mean, I'm talking about snappy, witty, quick, informative,
well worded,
yes. Good tempo, good pace, good timbre.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
Now, we chatted a lot about music during the break, and I could sit there and do that with you all night, and we will in the future. We're definitely going to have you back. But transitioning to your duties at the Ghost Pirates.
Yeah.
So between, I guess, pregame, between periods, like what's your typical day of a game night?
That's a really awesome question. So when I'm doing my average, ordinary, not filling in any cracks job, I'm just hype man Benji. I'll usually show up a couple hours before we do a rehearsal of pregame to make sure that if there's like a large group doing the national anthem, there's moving pieces in the pregame process.
Oh yeah, because you have people coming in to sing the national anthem. You might have the Ailey Temple Shriners come in and
100%.
throw their Fez hats at people or something like that?
Exactly. And, maybe there's a ceremonial puck dropper. The pregame experience, if you go to multiple games, that's the one that's going to be pretty different every time. And so we do a rehearsal of that, like a dress rehearsal before every game, before the doors even open. So we show up for that, and then pretty shortly after that's over, one of my responsibilities is to recruit contestants for all of our promotions throughout the night. So if you're watching on the YouTube channel and you're looking at my face and you go to a Ghost Pirates game next season, which starts October 18th, but if you go to a game and you want to do one of the on-ice promotions, which we'll get into, I guess, in just a second, look for me and say, hey, Benji, do we have any do you have any openings left for this game? And sometimes the answer is no. We have them all filled in before the first period starts. But I would be the person to come and ask about.
All right.
that.
Well, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
So I know I've seen behind the curtain of, like, say, The Price is Right. Okay.
Sure.
So the line to get in outside is very long. And they have scouts that go out before to see who are going to be their contestants. And the number one thing they're looking for is emotive, not like wild personalities, but just outgoing, enthusiastic, right?
Absolutely.
So if someone were to approach you and be like, Benji, I want to be on the pregame whatever, that immediately, I think, is enough of a resume for you to be like, this person is, number one, unafraid enough to come approach me personally and ask to be on there. So obviously they're not going to be afraid. They're not going to freeze up in front of a crowd.
That is absolutely accurate. Yeah. If they're outgoing enough to reach out to me, then I would assume they're outgoing enough that they're not going to lock up when the camera's on them. That's exactly right. And a lot of times, if you get like a birthday party group, they'll come up to me like, hey, it's my buddy's birthday. Is there something we can do? And if they're doing musical chairs that day, and we need 4 contestants who are not afraid to fall on their ass on the ice, then we're looking for those birthday parties, because it's like they're probably going to have a couple beers before the game starts. They might be a little bit loose. And ultimately, what we tell the contestants, so in the first period intermission, the intermission between the first and second period, that's when we really do like our games on the ice, our big contests. And
what, like shoot a puck from one end into a small hole at the other end?
Could be that. We do
musical
something
chairs?
like that. We do musical chairs. Wet Willie's is one of our sponsors, and they'll do this thing called the Daiquiri Dash, where they have to run across the ice and collect daiquiri ingredients that are just oversized ice cubes and pool noodles and stuff like that.
Great, yeah.
But just honestly, it's things that if a contestant fell on the ice, it would be entertaining for the people in the crowd.
That's the other thing I was going to ask. So they're out there on the ice in shoes.
Yeah, in their street shoes. Yep.
So there's no, that Parks and Rec episode where they were trying to go out into the middle of the ice and the carpet ended, and all of a sudden.
We hope that happens. I mean, they're wearing helmets.
Okay.
So in order to go on the
waivers
ice,
are signed.
Waivers are signed. Like literally, waivers are signed and helmets are worn if a non contracted individual within the Ghost Pirates.
We need
organization
waivers
is on
and
the
helmets
ice.
at fucking Huckapoos, bro.
There's got to be chaos on ice. I mean, I just can't imagine.
So between first and second period, the intermission, that's where the bulk of the games would happen.
Exactly. Yeah.
And are you down there on a mic announcing? Here's little Jeffrey chasing after the pool noodle.
So sometimes that'll be my responsibility. We have an in-game hostess who's been with the team since its inception, and so she'll usually narrate those on-ice games. She's Mac. She works for the radio. Savannah locals would certainly know Mac, and so she'll be the one narrating it, unless she's not there. In which case, I probably did that job 5 or 6 games
I derailed this
year.
a little bit. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
Your day-to-day or your game night, if you're only doing...
So if I'm doing my normal job, then I've recruited these people. I've made sure that they've met us, signed their waivers, gotten down to the ice, explained the games to
Understand
them,
the games.
got them on the ice. I'm making sure that all the pieces are in place for it. Making sure that operation runs smoothly. And meanwhile, we have our in-game hostess.
Yeah, because you're under a timeline. You got to get them on and off the ice. And
what's interesting that the average person who comes to a Ghost Pirates game wouldn't realize is there's a whole other production that's happening behind the scenes. That anybody who's got a headset on, there's a completely different, just like any live TV or anything like that.
Camera A, camera B, we need a higher angle. Oh, the light's high over it. Yeah.
That's exactly what's happening. All right, ready, this graphic, and
fade into camera 3.
That's exactly what's happening in our ears.
Cue the music. Yeah.
100%. And so I'm in that world. I'm in the communicating behind the scenes, making sure, okay,
You're a
we've got
headset guy.
contests. I'm a headset guy. But then when we're not doing those, I like when I don't have to be a headset guy quite as much, because that's when I'm in with the fans.
You're out there on the streets, baby.
I'm out on the streets. I'm throwing T-shirts. I'm walking around with a drum getting "Let's Go Pirates" chants started.
Do you have a T-shirt gun?
So we have a T-shirt gun. At the Ghost Pirates, there's a Zamboni driver named Tim, who's kind of like, he's like the Zamboni guy.
Hey, Zamboni Tim. Everybody
Zamboni
knows
Tim.
Hey, everybody knows that guy.
Yeah.
Man.
So Zamboni Tim, he keeps a pretty close grip on the T-shirt gun. So he'll
The coveted T-shirt.
he'll stop the Zamboni every once in a while.
That's like
start
first chair violin. It's like, nah, I'm the T-shirt gun guy.
But Paxton, I call my right arm the T-shirt gun because
Oh, it looks more like a T-shirt cannon, but go ahead.
not a little
please
T-shirt
continue.
pea shooter, but in the second intermission, we do the Chuck-a-Puck contest where we roll out this treasure map on the ice, and there's an X marks the spot that's in a different spot every game, and people can buy these soft pucks that all are numbered, and whichever puck lands closest to the X marks the spot
Just rains down on the.
Yep.
Gotcha.
They win a prize pack. I enjoy trying to play dodgeball with the pucks that are getting thrown in my general direction.
Whoa, look out.
I think some people are intentionally throwing them at me every once in a while. There'll be one that's like, whoa, that had a lot of heat
You're
on
like
it.
the golf ball collector in the
Driving
car
golfer
on
with
the
the-
driving range. That's what you are. I mean,
100%. Every once in a while, if there's one that's going wildly off course, I'll try to bat it in the right direction. Just
Alley-oop,
whatever.
baby.
I'm sure I'm not going to create a new winner that shouldn't have been. But after that, we always do a
I
T-shirt
saw your
toss.
stats. You're pretty high on assists currently this year. I saw
Leading
them.
the league in Chuck-a-Puck assists for sure. But then we do a T-shirt toss, and my goal is always to hit the mezzanine. Yeah, it's like we've got plenty of other throwers who can hit the ground level. I want to
But
try to get it up into
we're
the
not
sweet
wasting this cannon on the lower level.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Everything's got to be a little bit of a competition for yourself, a little bit of a challenge.
course.
It makes it more fun.
People will
So,
die for a T-shirt.
So the last puck has dropped. The last goal has been scored. The lights are going down. How long are you at the facilities afterwards?
It depends. So, an interesting fact, and I don't think that this is a secret, is that End Market Arena is owned by its own people. And technically, the Savannah Ghost Pirates are like a tenant of End Market Arena. And that's why they can also have concerts and, various other groups come in. It's not like this is Ghost Pirate Stadium. And so, if there is going to be a concert between the end of a game and the next game, we have to do what's called a full breakdown.
You're not rolling off a basketball court. This is a ice hockey
It's an
rink.
ice hockey arena, so they have to melt and remove all the ice, all the walls. Those will go. So if we have a game on Friday, a concert on Saturday, and another game the following Wednesday, in that time, all Ghost Pirates signage and stuff
that's gotta
that's part of
come
the
down.
game that'll go away. In fact, some of the shape of the seating will change.
Sure.
We'll move in and out, and they'll.
So your grounds crew too.
Remove the ice. Bring it back in. Yeah. Well, thankfully, I don't have to do much in terms of removing ice or walls, which is thank God. But we've got to put away all of our promotional stuff, all of our, there's that setup where we've got the cannons and the flag and all that stuff, and that's usually what falls into my particular responsibility. We've got. Thankfully, there are some interns that do a lot of the let's move chairs and tables around.
Well, and isn't there a thing about so when I'm at work, even if it's not necessarily my job, we all don't get to leave until everything's done.
Yeah.
If you see something and it's like,
it done.
I'll move a few chairs because I'm going to be here no matter what.
Exactly.
Let's get it done. I'm not saying you're not doing your job over there, but if I see something that I can do.
We all pitch in. And so there's kind of two sides of the same coin. And I straddle the fence a little bit that there's what's called GPTV, which is basically running everything that comes through the screens and the sound system. So your stadium DJ would be under
Georgia
that umbrella.
Public Broadcast Television.
That's exactly what. No, Ghost Pirates Television is what GPTV stands for. But yes, Georgia Public Television too. So we have kind of our responsibilities, and then the ticket sales people do a lot of the breaking down of promotional materials. If there's like special seating areas, they'll break that down. So thankfully, usually the GPTV side gets done first, and that's what most of my work is within. So I kind of wait for all of that to get done, and then we generally roll out together. But a lot of times the sales staff will be around for considerably longer than we are.
So there's a end game like announcer or analysis going on, I would imagine, or in terms of not for the broadcast, but in house. If you're at the game, do you hear a guy?
Yeah, so actually that's the PA announcer is the voice of God in the stadium that says that goal was scored by number 19 Ross Armour at 3:17 in the second period.
That was his 8th assist in September. It was back so,
exactly right. And so when I first started, I was doing PA announcing for about half of the games. And then we hosted the All-Star game. And during that All-Star break, we kind of reassessed the strengths and weaknesses of the staff that we had. And they found that when I was on an off day of being the PA announcer, because there's another guy who also does PA announcer, that a lot of the stuff on the floor went a lot smoother. That my value added down there, in that they noticed that I, being a man of the people, when I'm a PA announcer, I'm in the booth and I don't get to interact with anybody. And when I'm down, in the stands,
on the streets, baby,
and recruiting the contestants and doing those things, that they found a lot of value in that. And that's why they kind of created this hype man thing. And they made it very clear to me, we are not demoting you from PA announcing. You're doing a perfectly fine job PA announcing, but this is where
your value in other places, higher value in other places.
Exactly.
You can't keep these cannons in this face out of the public eye. You want me up there on my ivory tower where no one can see this?
Anonymous behind a microphone on the 4th level?
My talents are being unused right now.
Tip of the spear.
And I will walk out the door.
I was born to be a hype man.
It says it on my business card right here, doesn't it? What's your favorite game to run?
I really like doing the musical chairs because, you get a rowdy group, especially if it's like a bachelor party. Or
how many chairs do you start with?
We usually will start with 3 chairs for contestants.
Oh, wow. That's quick. What has
I mean,
we usually only have about 2 minutes to run the entire
yeah.
promo. But when you get people who are a little ornery and they start like doing I'm just going to snag the chair out from under you strategy, and those games can kind of devolve quick, but the audience really gets into them.
I'm telling you, nothing takes us away from our old Roman brain of Colosseum.
Oh, absolutely.
Spectatorship. It's like they're bloody and bleeding and dying down there, but this is entertainment up here for us.
100%.
Especially now in the age of the short attention span. Seeing people falling and getting hurt. I got him. So, all right. I know that there's certain they'll match up certain people in certain contests because they know there will be some contentiousness there. Like oh, this dude's gonna get really, really amped about this. Does that sort of factor? All right, nobody's listening right now. Does that factor into how you pick who's gonna do musical chairs?
Well, so. I'll put it this way. What I will tell
just
contestants before
don't worry about it.
Entre nous, Pax. Before we go onto the ice, I will usually tell them, like, hey, I know that, like, for you guys are playing a game, you're competing against each other, just like if you were playing poker downstairs. But to everyone else, this is a show. So just have fun and act accordingly. And usually people love to hear that. Because it's like, oh, you just gave me license to not focus so much on the musical chairs of it or the daiquiri dash of it or whatever, and I can focus on I'm gonna go try to shove my friend over. I'm gonna try to like hype up the crowd if I've got a huge lead and it's a race and I'm racing to center ice and my opponent's way behind me. I'm gonna do a little moonwalk on the way there. I'm gonna do something goofy.
Nothing will jolt a person into being so emotive and so outward than the roar of the crowd.
100%.
Once they've done this one thing, they're like, oh shit, this is what got the response. You're reading the room.
They want that pop.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a real thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, for the athletes, for anyone in front of a crowd, you get that pop. Woo! It's funny, like our dishwasher, Baba, he does ring toss.
Sure.
And he's a savant at it.
He really is.
And there will be a band playing inside, and he'll hit the ring toss. And there's a huge pop from the crowd.
I watched, dude. One time I was at Pooh's, and I was at my spot. So I go to Huckapoo's a pretty decent amount, which is how we've gotten into contact with each other. And I don't bother with anywhere except for the outside bar. I will stand awkwardly behind somebody at the outside bar for probably up to a half hour and just be like, somebody's gonna leave.
Somebody's gonna get up. And when you came in yesterday, I was like, I didn't have to tell you because those people were getting up pretty much right away. But I was gonna be like, I signaled Benji, fucking sit there. Because people are like, oh, I don't want to take up space at your bar. I'm like, no, I want you to take up space at my bar.
He's gonna chit chat with me.
Sit here.
Because jerk off A and jerk off B won't be taking that spot.
Yeah, I have good credit with you at this point.
China's social credit score is good with me, baby. But yeah.
But that's my spot is I love being there. And there was one time, you say Bobo was his name, right?
Yeah, Bobo, yeah.
That I was hearing that clang, and I just looked over my shoulder, and the rest of the world might as well have not existed. I was enthralled with every throw that Bobo made.
He'll have the entire deck watching.
It's
a Masters-esque roar sometimes coming from the deck when he does one of those off the shoulder.
It's Tiger hitting that putt on 18, you know?
Yep.
It's just
crazy.
But the funny thing is the band will be doing like a guitar solo. The big Bobo pop happens from him hitting the ring toss, and they'll go, oh, that wasn't for me. I thought that was a really great guitar. Announcer voice.
Yeah.
Now, there's natural talent for certain things. You know what I mean? Like, there's certain guys or girls where their speaking voice naturally is soothing. It's got a good timbre. But that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a great public speaker or understand the process or the functional part of speaking and getting across the message or the information, whatever it is. And people think announcer voice is like, I'm putting this voice on because I want to sound. There is something to be said for speaking that way, and essentially it's a diction thing.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people, when they try to do an announcer voice or any kind of a broadcasting voice, they end up turning into strip club DJ. And now come and do the main stage.
Yeah.
Let's go right into our nose.
Or the morning radio do guys.
Exactly.
Next up, we got Wigwam calling from the Wazoo. Up next, we got Metallica. Well, yeah. But
we got a rock block.
There is a caricature of it, obviously.
Yeah.
But I can tell just speaking with you in conversation, I don't hear announcer voice, but I hear the acuity of not wasting a lot of words.
Yeah.
And some people find it annoying when I speak to them as if I'm speaking on the podcast or something like that, because it's not curt or trite or super concise, but it's I like a snappy conversation.
Sure.
I like to get it all across, and we can meander. We can go up and down the river. We can make jokes or whatever. But I can tell just by speaking to you that it's natural for you to get the point across in a timely manner.
Well, and you can be more economical with your words by choosing words that have the connotation. If you use a word that has the connotation that it substitutes for an entire sentence,
yes,
then it can really shorten the amount of time that you spend on the BS and still convey what you're trying.
But then
to
you're
convey.
like, I hope they know what immolation means.
Well, that's the downside. It also filters out the stupid people who are constantly, can you use easier words? I don't know what amalgamation means.
Is that an amalgam of two other what? You were on a game show recently.
I was, yeah.
And we talked earlier about the recruitment process.
Yeah.
Of certain things, right? So if you want to get on Jeopardy, you sign up online first, you do a test, and then you go through the second thing where they actually bring you into a room. You take a test with a bunch of people there, and then you end up getting on it. It's like a vetting sort of thing.
Absolutely, yeah.
you were on The Weakest Link.
The Weakest Link, yeah, absolutely.
And that's the U.S. edition.
Correct.
And who's the host?
Jane Lynch.
Oh, Jane Lynch is great.
Yeah, so of Glee and Role Models. Yeah.
Oh, 40-year-old virgin.
40-year-old virgin. If you look through her IMDb page, it's like, oh man, these movies are incredible.
She's bit parts in so many great things, but she's a standout.
She's a great character actress who can kind of steal scenes from the stars for sure. And she was an extremely kind-hearted lady.
Does she have to put on the air that so I've seen the British lady. I haven't seen the American version, but the British lady was sort of obtuse and diminutive towards the
crushing.
Yeah,
exactly, and that's the persona that she tries to put on during that show.
Jane does. I just can't imagine her doing that because she's so she's so good with improv and comedic acting and bouncing off of people, where she's generous and supports the other actors or the other participants.
Yeah.
So her in that role, that's a huge range that she has.
It was interesting to see it because whenever the cameras were off, she was so kind. If there were personal conversations or if she was following up on something that was
she's no Ellen DeGeneres.
Exactly. I would say that my interactions with her were nothing but positive. Now, granted, she only saw me for 6 hours of filming or whatever that day.
Yeah.
And maybe if you catch her on and off, who knows? I only experienced a really warm, kind version of Jane Lynch. But I do think that because of what the show is supposed to be, they try to have her do her best American Anne Robinson.
It's a brand
version.
It wouldn't be. It wouldn't be
that the writers come up with, or if she or herself comes up with, to their insult lines, more than like a mean, vicious personality. She doesn't have a lot of venom in her, even when
you can tell there's not a lot of malice like right behind it. It's just like, hey, this is, and they prep you on that. Like, look, she doesn't mean a lot of these things. They like don't cry, or actually cry. That's great television.
Well, exactly. Yeah. And there was a dude in our episode who cried, but he wasn't crying. He wasn't crying because of any.
His name was Benji. Spoilers.
Yeah, exactly. I had to get the tissue box. But there was a dude in the episode that I was on that cried. And I've watched. When I got selected to be on the show.
Yeah. So
in prep, I watched.
How'd you get selected?
So Here's the from square one of it.
Sure.
I was at a teacher orientation day, a beginning of the year in-service day, and one of the little icebreakers that we did was a teacher trivia contest. And we broke off into little teams, and our team fucking dominated. We destroyed everybody. And so I was kind of feeling myself, and every so often I'll look up game show casting calls just for fun, you right now at home could Google game show casting calls, and whatever the top link is probably a real life application to various games. Now, ever since COVID, and perhaps before COVID, but definitely since COVID, they mostly cast in Southern California. They'll say only valid for residents of Southern California. And
I've been looking up the wrong thing. I've been looking up casting couch. That's not.
I have no idea what you're talking about,
why
Paxton.
Jeopardy wasn't on there. What the hell?
You were in Jeopardy, all right.
Wow. Thank you for enlightening me. God.
But I saw Weakest Link casting nationwide, and so I was like, oh, okay, this is awesome. Like I'm familiar with the show. Like I like trivia. I watch a crap ton of Survivor. Like I enjoy the show Survivor. And frankly, the gameplay of Weakest Link is like if Jeopardy and Survivor had a baby. And so I sent in an email to the production, and they said, hey, you know what? I must have done well enough in the way I presented myself in the email.
Written word.
Yeah, in the written word, that they said, hey, we'd like to have a Zoom interview with you. And at the time I was living in Michigan, and in my basement I had an inflatable hot tub. And so I was like, I'm gonna have a hook. I want to have a reason why they would put my application on a different pile than everybody else's application. Yeah. And so I put on a full suit and tie and got in the hot tub, and I said some line about like, yeah, because I'm formal, but also I'm a man of leisure. Whatever. I
thought you were going to say I didn't mention it at all.
just sat in the hot tub. That might have actually been better. For the bit, that might have been better, but for selling myself, I probably need to acknowledge it.
They're like, this guy's TV ready.
Exactly.
Like he gets it. Yeah.
And so they asked me some stories about myself. Who are your heroes? What's your most embarrassing story? Just various late screener questions.
Yeah.
And then they asked me about 25 trivia questions, and I would say I probably got about 20 of them right. So I probably passed their threshold of, is this guy going to be embarrassingly bad at trivia? And is this person interesting? Does he have a person? Just like you said with the Price is Right lines, I did the virtual version of that.
Sure, yeah.
And so I must have impressed them enough that they called me back. They said, hey, you're a finalist. They did another little interview with me. Then they did background checks, did a social media background check, which totally, it was weird at the time to be like.
They wanted to see if you were
problematic.
9/11 didn't happen.
Exactly.
The Holocaust is fake.
Because
some shit like that, yeah.
You don't think about it, but if you're going to be on NBC, which is what that network is, there's
a number of people are going to look at your social medias.
Yeah, 100%. And I got some Facebook friends from Facebook friend requests from randos, or messages from random people that I thought there was a chance that that might happen, but I didn't. It still was a surprise to be like. Sure. Oh, okay, just Weakest Link fans are reaching out to me about various things. And so they checked that. I must be not problematic enough to put on television.
Which the bar is going down further.
So were you the weakest link?
I actually won. Not to be a spoiler. Sorry to anybody at home who hasn't watched yet. But
the episode is released?
It's on Peacock right now.
How long ago was this?
So it aired in May. May 12th. It was about a month ago that it aired. And
how long from filming to airing was it?
It filmed about a year and a half ago. I filmed it in November of 2022, but they bulk film because they have to be economical with their staff, with Jane, and so they'll film all 2 seasons in a few months' time, and then release them out, and I happened to be 16 out of 20 that they filmed. So they released them over the course of 2 years.
Oh, wow.
And so I was kind of just, honestly, I was checking my local TV listings to find out when I was going to be on TV.
Did they let you know, don't say anything to anybody?
I did have to sign a non-disclosure. I didn't spoil it. My ex, who I was with at the time, was the only person who knew the outcome. Because they said you could tell if your finances directly impact anybody else's finances.
Oh, right, yeah.
Like if you tell them, they literally said put the fear of God in them, not to tell anybody else. But there's also the element of I didn't want to tell my parents how I finished because I wanted them to be able to watch and root for me,
and feel the excitement with you. Yeah.
Exactly. And so it ended up being a really, really cool thing when the show aired because all of these people who knew that I was on it a year and a half ago.
Watch party.
I watched it. Let me hold that thought. But they were watching, at the same time and texting me or reaching out via social media. And it would be in the middle of the game, like, hey, you made it through another round. Or, oh, that question, you're doing great, whatever. And they had no idea.
Who knew it was Belarusia?
Exactly. They had no idea that I was going to go on to win. And that was so cool. Now, I actually had to host trivia the night of the airing. So I told the people who are regulars at
he seems a little distracted tonight. Benji isn't his normal self. What's going on?
I told him I knew about 2 weeks in advance that my episode was going to air, and so I told the people at Draft Room at Berwick where I host trivia, like, hey, just so you know, on 2 Tuesdays from now, at 9 o'clock, we usually wrap at about 8:45. At 9 o'clock, I'm going to be on national TV. I'm going to be on an episode of Weakest Link. And a lot of my regulars stuck around and watched it with me.
That's great.
Frankly, it was like if I had to drive home, I would have missed some of it. So it was kind of out of necessity. I either would have had to cancel trivia, which I think they would have understood. But it was like, you know what? I can watch it with the people who play trivia with me every week. Like, that's a really cool thing.
What better venue to have, or, what better audience or crowd to have around you than
Exactly. And I think I got bought a shot after about every round. By the time it was done, I was like, I want to remember watching the final round here, guys.
All right, guys. Now I'm taking an Uber. I was going to drive home, but now I have to Uber.
But it was really cool watching it live. And honestly, Paxton, one of the things that was really neat I don't think that this is telling too many industry secrets, but there's a lot of stuff that was filmed that didn't get aired.
Oh,
and
yeah,
so, maybe they had 20 minutes of conversation with me and Jane and, various stories that they told. And so I was kind of curious about what would make the cut, what was going to
20 minutes of filming?
Well, like
between you and her,
between
right?
me and Jane specifically.
Over under, I'm saying 2 minutes.
It was probably about, we'll say under, but close. I think 2 minutes is probably about where I would.
People don't understand that about the production side of things. Like they film and film and film and film and film and film and film.
So that they can find the sparkling moments out of all that film.
That shining moment.
If you wanted to distill this particular podcast into a 5-minute podcast, it would be all bops. Jokes and jokes. But
how could they contain you into 2 minutes, man? What the hell?
But what I loved was I grew up singing in barbershop quartets and barbershop choruses, and that's a style of music that I'm
Skokie, Illinois. I knew that.
There you go. And that's a style of music that I'm particularly passionate about. I was raised singing in it. I sang barbershop all through college. I've been so busy since moving down here that I haven't gotten involved since being down here. But there was a conversation that I had with Jane about the fact that I had sung in barbershop quartets, and it was actually kind of advocacy for barbershop, and they chose to air that.
It is
part.
an underrepresented group.
Yeah, and when it is represented, it's almost always a joke of some sort. Like it's like they'll show dudes wear straw hats,
or it's antiquated in the sense of like guys around a barrel fire.
Exactly. Yeah, like a doo-wop group. Exactly right. And nowadays, like barbershop, if you saw a barbershop quartet, it would look nothing like what you see on TV. It would look like dudes in suits or dudes in.
Well, Key and
jeans
Peele
and
had a brilliant sketch about it.
So I love Key and Peele. What was?
All right,
I don't know if I saw that one.
They go in. They're in a doo-wop group, and Key or Peele was already in the group, right?
And
he goes, "This is my group of white boys. What you trying to do in here?"
The other one leaves to go join the improv troupe.
So the barbershop quartet is. It's underrepresented at this point.
Yeah, and so it was really cool getting to like kind of go to bat.
So
for
did that make it to air? That conversation about
yes, and I was that like really warmed my heart when that.
Were you kind of hoping that would be one of the parts that made it? Yeah,
because like
sure.
they talked to me about my cat, and they talked to me about other stupid stuff, and it was like. I hope that something that I actually like really care about, not that I don't care about my cat or anything, but that makes air. And, I got people who
Benji does not care about his cat. I just want everyone to...
Sorry, Gary. I was getting messages from, like, people who are barber shoppers. There's a society, there are members and whatnot that would that reached out to me like, hey, we really appreciated that you talked about barbershop or that you spoke out for it. And, like, people that I had no idea about. Yeah. And it felt really good. It felt like I was doing my duty for a genre that, as you said, is underrepresented, underappreciated. And so that made me really happy. Other than winning the cash prize, that was
part
that I really enjoyed.
I mean, the money was nice. But, we had a lady down here that she went on to Wheel of Fortune. And we had a big watch party at the gymnasium down here. And obviously, with the NDA, spoiler, she ended up winning, but so we had this big watch party, and what they did was for each round, if the audience guessed the phrase before it was aired, they would win a prize.
That's pretty cool.
So I got one. It was like a before and after. It was like a backyard yard sale, whatever, something like that, and I got it. It's like, let me get that prize, right? So it was a circular deck of playing cards. Wheel of Fortune. Now, I'm no master at Euclidean geometry or anything like that, but you ever tried to shuffle a circular deck of cards?
Paxton, I cannot say that I have, but I can only imagine.
But but the whole, the intensity of like, is she going to win, whatever, having that watch party. And then the other thing that I learned, and you were talking about it earlier with Jane Lynch. So Pat Sajak, probably the hardest working man in show business, not really. He lives in Maine.
Yeah.
He flies to Cali. And he shoots 4 episodes a day for 4 straight days. Mm-hmm. And that's what airs in the next month. And then he goes back to Maine. Yeah. But the thing is, the sweet part about it is he's not Jane Lynch. He's not an actor or actress doing other things. Like, that's his. So a week out of the year, he flies to sunny Southern California,
Helps people spend. And now, You think that's great. I wonder if Vanna White's paycheck is remotely close, because being the Vanna White to just go, boop, boop, that sounds like the dream job right there.
It sounds like now I know that contract negotiations between, there is a hierarchy, but tenure of the show, I bet Vanna was pretty close.
Yeah.
I would think so. They're pretty much paired.
There's not
pairing.
one without the other.
We want to see what Vanna's wearing.
If you asked a random person on the street, name a person associated with Wheel of Fortune, I bet it would be about 50-50 that they would say Vanna White or Pat Sajak.
100%. Yeah. There's it's one is just as important as the other.
Yeah.
There's a funny thing to be said about like what we assume are the contribution versus compensation.
Yeah. As we were talking about earlier.
Yeah. It's funny where it's like she just turns the thing. It's like, well, she is a landmark of like femininity and womanhood and evergreen.
Exactly. Yeah. And they couldn't just if Vanna White would have to like retire, they couldn't just be like, yeah, hey, we're gonna put some young model in there.
Do
to
a
take
quick
your place.
switch out here, real quick.
Yeah,
because they tried to replace Jenny McCarthy with Carmen Electra on.
I was fine with both.
But it just wasn't the same.
Why's it got to be this or that with you, Paxton?
I was fine with both.
It just wasn't the same. Oh my God. Well, dude, this has been so fun, man. We've got to have you back on again. So the Ghost Pirate season, what's the...
So it goes from October to April, unless we are fortunate enough to make the postseason, in which case it could extend into May.
Have you guys made the postseason before?
Not yet, but
Not yet.
We're a brand new team. This was our second season. We just wrapped up our second season.
This was now just your second season.
Yeah, so
and it's a pretty hard ticket to get, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
And so when they go on sale, get them on the first market, get those dates set for yourself, make it an event. It really is an awesome time.
And
if you want
to really participate, you approach Benji and say, "Hey, man, musical chairs. You want this guy, right?"
Yeah, that is absolutely right. And you know what? We enjoy getting people on the ice for those contests that want to do it, right? It's way more fun if I know, hey, these people approached me, as opposed to I had to twist somebody's arm to play the Publix high-low game. They're not going to present as well, and it makes my job a lot less fun.
And
come up to me.
It's almost more like a theater because actors, on the big screen, you can see all their facial expressions, all the subtleties. But if you're a stage actor, like Broadway, you have to be there. You
have to play to the back of the room,
right?
Play to the back of the house.
So if you're down on the middle of the ice, the people in the mezzanine need to see.
Absolutely.
It's the Coliseum.
And that goes to what I was talking about. You can't have an off day for any class in elementary school. You can't have an off day if you're holding a microphone at the Ghost Pirates Arena.
All right, up next we got Dave and Jack. They're going to try and shoot this fucking puck all the way to the other end. No one's done it before. I don't know why we still play this game.
Tonight I feel like Icarus playing too close. This man has got it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kelly. I appreciate that, man.
We got to have him
I would
back.
be on the other side of the glass for anything you got going over there.
Anything you want to plug before we go?
Well, I've got my own little podcast and YouTube channel. It's called the CC Podcast, SEESEE. My best friend and I, we make some stupid videos. We make some. We just kind of have conversations. It's like if you guys, the conversation that you hear about from behind the barcast, if it were more just everything, not focused on any specific field of work, just pop culture, whatever. We got a few episodes if you want to follow it. We'll have more coming through the summer when I've got a lot more free time to record. But other than that, man, just if you ever see me paddleboarding down by Tybee or you see me at Huckapoos, give me a hi.
And come see him at the Ghost Pirates, man.
And come to the Ghost Pirates. Our opening day is October 18th. So season tickets will be on sale shortly. And actually, if you follow Ghost Pirates social media, I can't tell you specifically what. I actually checked today to make sure that I can't tell you specifically what, but follow.
He told me.
There is big news coming soon with the Ghost Pirates in the next couple of days. In fact, it might be today if you're listening to this on your Tuesday commute to work. Follow Ghost Pirates social media for big news, and come see a Ghost Pirates game. It's a lot of fun. I know that it's not Banana Ball, but the Bananas aren't playing in an actual league with actual standings and actual leverage for the game.
That's apples and oranges.
It is apples and avocados, my friend.
This guy.
When it's 5 seconds left in the third period of a game where you're trailing by 1 and the crowd is going nuts. That doesn't happen with the Savannah Bananas because nobody really cares about the outcome.
You know, I'm about to interview one of them guys, right?
Hey, look.
Let's start the beef right here. Let's go. I'm ready.
I love the Savannah Bananas. I think that what they provide is great. It is a baseball circus, and I think that the entertainment value of that is amazing. I think that they've done amazing things, but I think it is...
Keep the cameras rolling. Yes, continue.
It is inarguable... Is that camera 2? I don't know. It is
I'm right here, baby.
Fade into camera 2.
It is inarguable that from a competitive aspect, what the Ghost Pirates are providing resembles sports more than what the Bananas are providing.
There's something on the line.
Exactly.
There's advancement.
We are trying to make the playoffs. The Bananas will never be trying to make the playoffs. And so you catch a game in, February, March, when that playoff push starts kicking, the competitive juices are flowing, the season ticket holders are going nuts for everything. That's when you want to be in end market.
The arena is on fire.
It is.
It is ladies and gentlemen, the energy is palpable in here tonight. Now for the t-shirt cannon with Benji. Lock it in, baby.
Exactly.
You can support From Behind the Barcast on Patreon. It's patreon.com/From Behind the Barcast. Please go see the Ghost Pirates. Please support our friend Benji. And if you see him there, approach him. Say, hey,
I like to think I'm an approachable dude.
I want to be on that ice, man. You need to put me on that ice, Benji.
And I want to see you fall.
Secretly, I want you to fall, though. Wear very slippery shoes. All right, guys, we love you, and we'll see y'all next week.